So I'm not going to continue what I started in the last class. Last class was about the infrastructure related to new media. So here I have taken one unit from one topic from second unit and another one from the very first unit, which we were left to have ponder upon and left to discuss more about it, and that is a part of this misinformation and misinformation. There is a whole conduit of misinformation, disinformation, and this the second social media. The second aspect which I have taken is important for you because next practical question is going to be on social media, and that's why I have taken this topic from the second unit. Okay, but we are yet to finish the first unit. So quickly, I will deal with the remaining part of information disorder. So, as a part of information literacy, as I have already discussed with you, that there are some kind of informations which could be simply put into one group that is called group of four, group of M. There's a 4M, so that consists of malinformation, right, messed up information, and mostly abundant information and misinformation. Apart from that, when we talk about the information, you see, disorder, here we are going to specify some of the information that could actually make fake news. So we talked about some of the information, like we call disinformation, we call misinformation, we call even this parody and satirical content, we call false connection, and also you see imposter content, about which I have given a brief mention, and also about misleading information. So there are varieties of information to understand how it will be clubbed in different groups. So in terms of clubbing those information into groups of harmful information or harmful informations, or simply information which is being sent unconsciously without any intent, is important. Okay, so hence, first in the types of information, as I have already told you that there are some kind of divisions. So we start with that false context. So you know the false context when you have a false context. So false context is often there in social media, and why I have taken this information disorder and that too the importance of it in a class where I'm going to discuss about social media because of the centrality of information disorder in social media, because there are a lot of fake news which have been exchanged and we follow it, right? And at times we are swayed by those disinformation and fake news, and we tend to share those information. So if you even log in Facebook, so most of the time you will come across content which are based on false connection and false context. So these are two types of disinformation, I would say: content based on false connection and false context. So false connection will give you information which is not relevant, in the sense that you will get to see a photograph but the text is not related to the photograph. Nowadays this becomes a kind of, you say, advertising technique to create a buzz around the people and the user. So you can actually see when information is used just to persuade and even to deceive the people. It is a kind of deception strategy, deceive people to read it, and in the form of clickbait. So have you heard about this term called clickbait? So what you can do, we can click it, but actually we are being persuaded by the pictures, but perhaps by the text. But either the picture or the text is misleading, is not the actual information. Suppose you can also see some of the information related to rape victim, recent rape victim. You can get to see a photograph of it. You click it, you thought of getting some information regarding the rape victim, but you will end up getting information regarding the BMW car. Okay, so that is a kind of false connection which we tend to get in social media. nowadays, and hence it is important the types of disinformation, knowing the types of disinformation is important, because this actually forms the the centrality of social media discussion, apart from the impact and influences of social media. Now you see, apart from that false connections, we also have false context, right? So when we say false context is when you actually get a photograph which is 7 years, 8 years old, and using it with a recent occurrence of an event will be termed as a false context. Suppose you were using a photograph of World War II or a Vietnam crisis or a civil war in in a calamity or a natural disaster like earthquake. A devastation is similar, so it can easily deceive the people. And you also need to have a photographer to persuade people and to fill the space. But the thing is that whether it is right or wrong, it's wrong actually, because this actually creates a false context, right? So both this false context and false connection will come under disinformation. So disinformation is always, you see, intent to harm the audience, intent to harm the readers here. Then we also have the satirical content or the parody. When we say satirical content and the parody, these are not harmful content, but it will make us very ambiguous. We could not able to get the exact gist of the event, the focus of the event. And hence, when we talk about any kind of satirical comment in the parody, so it will make us very confused. So intent is not to hurt and harm anyone. So hence, it will come under misinformation. Then we also have malinformation. Malinformation is quite harmful information. As I have already discussed about this information, like any kind of leaks will be malinformation. Any kind of hate speech which is intent to harm will be malinformation. And also, you see, the any kind of inflammatory content will be malinformation. So, information which will actually damage the society, okay, like the bomb making information, which will actually need to have a very derogatory impact, will be considered as malinformation. So, if we can divide the information in misinformation, malinformation, and you see, uh, disinformation. So then we can get to understand the differences among these very concepts. Then also we have another information. This is called fabricated content or fabricated information, which is also disinformation intent to harm people. Fabricated content. Fabricated content is a fake news basically. When you say that you get a message, you are saying that this time you can vote our CM via SMS, will be kind of fabricated content. Okay. Or you can also get a message that someone is getting endorsed by some political leader who is a lady who is on the verge of accomplishing something or getting some some well good placement. Then you all of a sudden there was a news came up that she is being endorsed by someone else. So it's also a kind of fabricated content. Okay, so you need to know the intent of that content is to spread hatred at the same time and to harm the one who is being targeted. Okay, so that comes under, you see, uh, disinformation. Imposter content is there. I have discussed about imposter content. When you get a byline which of an article, get a byline of an article which you haven't written, is a kind of imposter content. You have made a video, you have posted in your social networking site, and you get a cropped image of BBC or CNN attached to it to achieve the credibility of what you have done, will be equated to, you see, imposter content. Okay, So like that way, you can actually see this type of information which will be available in social media. So here we look into the social media, the very basic concept of social media, that it is a platform which will help us to make um, profile or semi-public, public profile or semi-public profile, and that too in a bounded system. So that's how we can understand the concept of social media, that a media which can help us to make a public or semi-public profile that is based on the visibility of the media. It can be very public profile based on the visibility and the use of privacy setting, and also semi-public profile. When you talk about the semi-public means lesser visibility. When you talk about public, that is a greater visibility. So social media itself is a public communication. So now you see the theoretical foundations. Here we also can use some of the theories that we use in communication, because this is also a media. So we can use that uses and gratification theory. Mostly we uses and gratification theory. This is a media effect theory. Effects of using a media. So how you conceptualize that media effects theory is about the effects which is generated by the uses of media and having impact on you. Right. So we are not going to deal with the uses and gratification theory now, because you will be learning more about it in the next class. But here we will be getting into some of the paradigm of social media messages and also transactions. First very paradigm is selectivity paradigm. Selectivity paradigm is actually driven by our selective exposure to the message and also selective exposure to comment on. So you see, our effect, that is the effects of social media, we also see the effects of social media shape our experience at the same time, right? And we, by using social media, also generate some effects. Okay. Hence, you see in both way round, we have a paradigm that is called selectivity paradigm, based on which it is said that media effects is because of media effects generated is because of the selectivity exposure of the users. So we tend to expose to certain message selectively. Selectively we will choose certain message, and also selectively we choose certain videos. Okay, and that is based on our behavioral disposition, right? So here in selectivity paradigm, you also have, you see, this disposition, behavior, and context. These are the three factors which will shape all three paradigms. Okay, so here in the last meso micro context and micro meso context, we have mentioned about the social context, but basically this is about the context. When you say context, context also help to understand the affordability of any media technologies, affordability of any media technologies, then where from where you have got the idea about the media and your place of belongingness. So everything determines the context here. Okay, and your proximate people who are very close to you, who are very near to you, that will also say this context at the same time. So in selectivity paradigm, so we'll be dealing with these three factors. One is the context, second one is the development, and third one is the disposition. Okay, first is the context. Context will determine how we use the message. Okay, so in your immediate context, you have the peer, and peer group will definitely influence you to go for certain kind of messages, and will also give you a lens what to expose to and what to, like, take. And then we see, apart from the peer, selectivity paradigm is about, you see, the affordances. Context also incorporate the affordances of one particular medium. So when you see the affordances, there can be different types of affordances. Affordances means the inherent property of that medium. And here in social media, we get to see the inherent property of social media is CMC, that is computer mediated communication. Right, and it is said that computer mediated communication is very rich. It is rich in terms of, you see, in terms of the outcome that we actually derive in comparison to face communication. So here, when you talk about the CMC, computer mediated communication, we also get to find that it has got those all properties when we discuss about the new media like the anonymity. Because of the anonymity property, we can be a bit safer, or we feel safer to uh, put any remark and also selectively target someone, hmm, uh, on any account. Okay, so here when you talk about selectivity paradigm, it doesn't simply uh, represent what you expose to, but what you write. Selectively, you are generating a message, and selectively, you are exposing to certain groups. Now, this whole selectivity paradigm in social media is also driven by algorithms and filters nowadays. Okay, and hence we can actually see a difference between the uh, mass media and social media is that although we selectively choose message, it is driven by that uh, algorithm which will actually follow our trail, the way we are using the message, and based on that we will be receiving the feed, receiving the post, and we will be using it. Okay, so it is the selectivity exposure is also technology generated nowadays. Okay, so when we say that we are exposed to the message and we ourselves exposed to the messages selectively, then we see that it is actually generated through technology. Then we see in selectivity paradigm, there are also about the developmental cues. Developmental cues is that this is called developmental susceptibility. So, which represent your age group and the content which is matching to your age group or have little, it will call little discrepant your age group or more discrepant and also less discrepant. So it is about discrepancy level of the content. Suppose a child will definitely be enamored to click on a button, right, or even this very interactive kind of interface, they will be very enamored or fond of clicking it because that will be very attractive for them. And also they will go for some of the visual items so which is icon based, very simple to understand. And then when you talk about that is in case of a toddler. Then when you achieve that adolescence, so you actually see their preferences will be a bit different, right? Because they will be first adolescents and the young. So prior to like adolescence and that mid age, so you will be actually preferring to look into some of the audio visuals. So or maybe video game will be much more attractive, and children of those 12 years, even 13 years, up to 15 years, 16 years old. So video game will be much more attractive for them. So because it is matching to their age group. And then after that, we get to see that there are children, or when we said adolescents, they will be exposed to a kind of risky behavior and irrelevant humor. So most of the adolescents are also exposed to irrelevant humor because they are into that tendency to get some entertainment. So they use social media to get that entertainment, so amusement and entertainment, and irrelevant humor and a risky behavior. So you can term that with the age group. Huh. And this is not what I'm saying. So this is how you see how even Bronfriend Bronner analyzed the context and also analyzed the paradigm. So he has carried out a study, and based on the received people's that interpretation of the message, he tried to find out the age group. And according to age group, he said that discrepancy or discrepancy level also developed towards certain kind of messages. Okay, so you see, when you talk about the selectivity paradigm, it is associated with the context factor, development factor, and dispositional factor. So in dispositional factor, we will be discussing about the disposition of the individual, like trait-based disposition, temperament. That is a very stable kind of disposition. As well as we see the personality happens to be another disposition. right? And also we have some transient kind of disposition, your mood swing is there, and mood is not very stable, so it keeps on switching, and hence it's a transient kind of disposition that will also have an effect, or that will be affecting the way we use social media. So our emotions at that period of time will be a part of disposition. And similarly, in transactionality paradigm also, we get to find all three factors. Here we actually transact, we are actually communicating to someone, and then once we are communicating, and the kind of change that is experienced by you can be explained by the transactionality paradigm. Okay, so in the selectivity paradigm, you are still in the starting point of exposing to a message, or you are going to get targeted by the message by another user. So that is the very starting point. But here in transactionality, you are actually uh, put up a message, you have given a post, or you are transacting with someone, and you also experience a change in your behavior. So after you put up a message, after communicating for long with someone else, you actually change a behavior, change in your behavior. So that is the transactionality paradigm which we listen. Apart from selective exposure, you also see a change uh, in your behavior, and that is shaped by media effects. So in the very first selectivity paradigm, in the very first one, media effects, we have discussed about the media effects. Your media effects talked about only the selective use of message, and that is driven by our disposition, our developmental factor, as well as social context where we inhibit. When you say the social context, that means the affordability of the technology, that is the CMC, as well as our peer group. Peer group will always influence us what to use, how to use, what information to consume, and we used to tend to form a like-minded group, and that way we are always being swayed by some selective exposure. And also you see the social context is going to represent the interaction between the micro, meso, and you said there is also another phenomenon that is called macro, as well as this is extra system. Okay, micro, meso, and macro and extra system. So here, when we say there is an interaction happens between the social media, the peer group, where we also bring in the parents and also the institutions in which you are associated with, and traditional media, and the culture in that region. So everything will affect the transactionality and the outcome of the effects of the media. Okay, so you're in the very first, you will expose to the masses selectively. You are exposing some kind of message. You are also consume some of the memes. Often you consume memes, or often you consume some cookery shows. That is a kind of selective exposure. And you follow some of the influencers, so always consume their shows or their videos in a Facebook. Okay, so in that way you are actually you are already determined. So what you will expose to. That is also be determined by the behavioral approach, your behavioral disposition, your context, as well as you see the developmental factor. Context, when you say apart from the peer, your parents can also regulate what you see. Right. So nowadays, you may not even find that regulation from the parents, but in terms of children, we get to see that children's behavior will be regulated by the parents nowadays, and it is recommended that it should be regulated by the parents. And also, there are many studies which have been carried out, try to find out the kind of behavioral change in the children which parents have observed after the couple of days uses of social media. And also the kind of recommendation which parents could offer. So that could be a kind of very open-ended kind of study, or a close-ended kind of study. That kind of study have been carried out now, and that comes in the social context. So we are basically studying the social context. Affordability of the technology, you see, affordability also determines the accessibility. So not it's an every parent can make their children access to a mobile phone, a laptop, a tablet, etc. Uh, and many people are not even literate in terms of those parental app, that parental guidance app, or some kind of filters and blockers. They are not aware of. They are not digitally literate. In that case, what is important is uh, the you see the transaction. Hmm. After getting the recommendation or exposure from the parental advice, if parent has said that okay, they can advise you that okay, you can go for these very messages, and the kind of change which is also delineated or permeated from that kind of behavior and influence of the parents is important. Okay, so in three very context, in the first two is a paradigm, and third one is the social context. And in social context, we also put mass media. See, mass media is an extra system here. It's not a macro system. Macro system is the subculture. So we do have a subculture which will always influence us, and youth has a subculture itself. Children doesn't have a subculture. Subculture is also a kind of culture which is associated with the occupations, and it is also different kind of expression to even reinforce their norms which is a bit deviated from the existing norms. Okay, so we talked about the subculture, youth subculture, police subculture, and also various other minority group can also form a subculture here. So here youth is always associated with the subculture because of their vulnerability due to age group. Going to that age group, they are quite vulnerable and they used to form a subculture. So macro context will basically represent that subculture. Subculture that a children is exposed to, that a youth, a young is exposed to, that kind of subculture. So that subculture is a mix of your surrounding, the context that you exposed to, context in the sense parents, your institutions, then the peer groups, so everything will form that subculture. And that extra system is basically the traditional media here. So when you're talking about the traditional media, you say traditional media will not give us that opportunity to directly participate. Right. So in extra system, that usually happens that you say that you watch television, you listen to radio, but until and unless they give us that opportunity to participate, like you say phone in call, that is another feedback mechanism which is there in traditional media. Unless and until we get that feedback mechanism open for us, we cannot participate. Right? We cannot participate. So it is being participation in traditional media and feedback a mechanism in traditional media is also controlled, because traditional media is highly hierarchical, right? It's a hierarchical and is a centralized system. So they will control the feedback, they will control the exposure at the same time, and they will determine the exposure, what need to be watched by the audiences. Now there is audience survey based on audience preference. Also, you get to see some of the shows usually got a different kind of narrative all of a sudden. They switch to narratives, and that is based on the audience survey. But still, you see that they tend to control, traditional media tend to control what we consume. Right, but here in social media, it is a micro concept because we can participate. So this micro and you say extra, that difference is there. Extra I haven't written down. So meso is different. Okay, micro because we can participate in social media. At once we can access to YouTube, or you see a Twitter, or you see Facebook. Here we are not talking simply about the Facebook. When you talk about the social media, there are many types of social media, right? So we have Facebook, we have blog, we have even wiki. These are also social media. Instagram, so Twitter. So you can use any social media here, and this media is open to you, so you can participate, and hence it actually creates a very micro context. So even if I need to carry out a study about your users' habit of social media, so I can also carry that study with a very small group of population, because the setting is very micro, and we can also have an in-depth interview with his or her experience, a group of five over the years, 4 5 years have been using even the fake Instagram. You find out often you cannot even identify the people who are using the fake Instagram. Fake Instagram profile is also another social media people are using, but there a person can be highly honest, but it's very difficult to find one who is using a fake Instagram. Then we have real Instagram, where you can actually post the comments based on your experiences, right? So you can also find someone you have been using for long, but the platform which have been which have been using by these Instagram influencers for a couple of years, for 5 years, 10 years. So over the years, the kind of that affordances that they hold, and because of which they could actually make a change in the behavior, or they could make a change in the participatory culture, maybe your study, and that might be very micro also, that can be very broad also. It can also involve the micro meso context, it can involve the, you see, micro meso and macro context. Okay, so three contexts could also be involved in that study. So but when you talk about the micro, we see that it involves participation. A family may be a micro setup because each and everyone is participating, free to comment on, free to exchange opinion. So it's a micro setup. It might be a micro setup. And when you talk about the meso represent the interactions among the micro setup. So when you talk about micro setup, social media is a micro setup. Your family is a micro setup. Your peer group is a micro setup. Let me tell you. And also, you see, your institution is also a micro setup, because institution will also organize your activities, right? In that way, so you will develop some of the professional trait, okay, based on the institutional policy, organizational policy. So interacting with that institutional environment and the kind of peer associates will form a micro setup. Okay, then your peer group will also form a micro setup. Now you see, if you link all this micro setup, no, peer group, family, then you see institutional setup. It will constitute a meso setup. Meso microlinkers. It will meso represent the interactions among the micro setup. Okay. Then we have macro setup. Macro is different because macro is broader than micro meso, but it involves the micro meso because it is broader than micro, so it actually represents the culture. And when you talk about the culture, it might be the ethnicity, the very characteristics of the populations, the geography that will represent, and also the occupation of that population, right? And you see the language of that population group of people, huh? And also you see some of the ascriptive identity, maybe religion, caste, race, so everything will actually form that macro setup. It will create a macro culture. And then we have that extra system. Extra is the media, traditional media, which will not allow us to participate. So traditional media will not allow us to participate, but let me tell you that it will affect each and everything we do, directly or indirectly. Right. So we usually earlier what we did, we earlier tend to carry out studies and media effects studies based on the effects of violent TV shows on children, on youth. That kind of study we used to carry out. Now the study has been, you say, converted and switched to effects of video game on children, right? So you talk about the violent TV shows, effects of violent TV shows on the children. Huh. So we see that indirectly that the television visuals will impact us, but we are not directly involved in it, and hence as there are less chances of communicating to the source and even participating in it to express your opinions or also collaborate. That's how we understand. Uh, so you actually see that it is not considered as a micro setup. It is a extra setup. It is extra because it can form an opinion, but and that to beyond this setup, beyond this micro meso and macro setup. Okay, so
Hence, we see I have actually kept this like social context separately. So here we can understand the uses of social media from the selectivity paradigm and the transactionality paradigm. Both this paradigm will help you to understand the uses social media. One is selective exposure theory, which will help you to understand. Another one is also affordance theory is there, that is by I'll be discussing about selective exposure theory more in later class. And another one is affordance theory. So it is not that is a vast theory. It is actually propounded by James J. Gibson. So basically, studying the property which help you to interact in social media, the properties of any medium which will help you to interact. So when you talk about the properties of television, help you to interact. Even the remote is also a property. That is a technology help you to interact, right? And we see that different channels at the same time they will have some kind of interactivity. So that property. And when you talk about the social media affordances are more, interactivity will be more, right? And it might have interactive affordances in terms of share, like, comments. There are different buttons. There are also interactive webcast. Okay, there are quizzes. Lot of interactivity is there in social media. So you tend to expose to any kind of content in social media in any platform. You also get to find out this very interactive affordances. And also you see that you have that content affordances also there. Content affordance in terms of using multimedia. So you can afford to use text. You can in micro setup you can afford to use text, video as well as incorporate the audio. Okay, so using that multimedia in social media context will actually form the content affordances. Okay, and also there are privacy affordances because that is entirely your right as well as your choice. So is your choice. So you can actually uh, uh, alter the privacy setting, or you can manipulate the privacy setting the way you want. And sometimes you um, may be aware of the problem and consequences which may come not to follow privacy guidelines, and hence you yourself can choose the type of privacy setting. So that could also constitute another affordances when you talk about. Okay, you understood? Briefly, I have discussed about it. So we will be discussing about users and gratification theory and also social exposure theory in the next class. Not in the next class, maybe after 2 3 classes, because we will have to bring in more number of example to study the users and gratification theory, because it is used prolifically in social media scenario. And then we see the institutional creation. Why I have told you the institutional creation of a SNS or social media account is important. We all have a social media account, right? Now, from organizational point of view, if we have to see that creation of a social media account or account in uh, any type of platform, you see in Facebook, we have a departmental page. Okay, a team of students are running it, and it's moderated by a faculty coordinator. So we do have a faculty coordinator, but usually a team of students are basically running and managing that Facebook page. So that is basically, you see that institutional profile profile in social media. So that's a Facebook account. And we talk about the Twitter account and Instagram account of the department. So here the thing is that it's not about having simply an account. Now there are some do and don'ts. It is not about being very practical how to create. You know how to create. But while creating it, the kind of uh, the rules that you need to follow is important. First is the very basic nature of social media uh, platform, which you need to understand. Social media can actually connect, it can collaborate, it can create a community, right? And hence, we tend to create an account in the social media. So there is a purpose, because It can give you a very extensive reach, and you can connect to innumerable number of the people, and it will also give us a brand name, give our organization a brand name. I'm not talking about you now, I'm not talking at individual level. So we have to discuss about that the culture which is created by individual users habit uh, of social media, because there are different social media. So I need to discuss each and every social media separately, because each and every social media has got different affordances, technological affordances. And there are also variations in those social media, like we have variations in blog and wiki. We also see we have variations in different social media. In YouTube, you need to know about technological affordance, how to even, like, get money using a YouTube. It is a money spinning platform, so you can also earn money by using YouTube. So that is another easy aspect. But we are not going to study the differences among the platform. Now, in terms of institutional account, so why we are actually creating an institutional account? Because it can provide us to collaborate with other stakeholders, which is important. It can create a community. We can have a community of like-minded people, or one who can appreciate our effort, appreciate our activities, appreciate our work, and also connectivity. Connectivity is important to inform the people what we are doing, right? So because of these three very characteristics, one is connectivity, second is collaboration, and third one is community. Connectivity, collaboration, and community. Because of these three very characteristics, we are having an institutional account, right? And then you see, what will be the core value of using an account, which is important. Core value of using a social media account. Somebody has come. Okay. Now you see, when you talk about the core value, first value will be the identity. So definitely we'll be using the social media account as an identity management platform. So it will manage your identity. It will create an identity of your institution. I'm not talking about you. Identity of the institution. So identity will be another core value. So apart from identity is the authority. Whether you are authorized to make that account or not is important. Then the relevance is important. The content which are posted in the social media will be relevant, definitely, and it will comply to the institutional goal. It's very, very important, right? And then when we talk about other core values, will be the openness. Openness, in a sense, uh, open. You are open to, when you account create an account, where you are open to. Get a wide range of users, or you are making it for a closed group of users, or while responding also, if you have filtered some of the responses, or you are open to respond to each and every users who seek for any queries or not. So that kind of openness we are talking of. So here, normally account, when we create an institutional account, any kind of government institution, is a private institution, an NGO, or a school, so will be open only, right? And along with the open, we also have the privacy. Privacy happens to be another core value, uh, which is very important. So these are the some of the values, where identity, authority, relevance, openness, and privacy. So which will be taken into consideration while using an institutional account. Now see, after using that institutional account, what is important that you will face some challenges. Now, why you have created that account will be the first question. Why you have created that account? So the objective of creating that account has to be highlighted. So in each and every website, if you visit website, so some objective will come, objective will appear, objective will be given. So objective of creating that account has to be there. So if you visit any website, if you study the interactivity, it is important to know the objective of using that particular site, or objectivity of even creating that, not your objective to using that particular site, or objective to create that particular site, which is there in the about us space basically. So objective is there. What objective? Drive to create that account. And then we also see who will manage that account. Now another question: who will manage? So to decide who will manage is important. Huh. So it is also about delegation who will be managing, so that core of people or a team of students maybe, or team of employees who are ethically trained at the same time, and who knows merits and demerits, should given the that managing role. Know how to respond, when to respond, and also know about the ethics and legality of uh, you see having an account, and the consequence of having an account in online platform is important. Okay, and then we actually see that what is important. This is important. Let me tell you, is about the account governance. Okay, this is also about management, but when you talk about the account governance, it's about role and responsibilities which will be divided, as well as the um, uh, you see the response time which you will decide. Suppose the kind of queries that we get. Now you will be posting. You have decided to create an account. You have some objective. You have some aim to create an account. So you have created an account. You have started posting. While posting, that is also the content which you have to be very careful of. So you need to think about the accessibility of the content, accessibility of the language, and content has to be relevant. Okay, you met that parameter. After that. Uh, what will be the next step is the response time, which is very important. Response time, for response time you can have an FAQ, right? Frequently asked questions. And also you can have a fixed that is response format for frequently asked questions. So you can divide those questions into three categories. Some questions which will be regularly usually asked. Okay, so for that you have a frequently asked question for which you don't need to respond. And there will also be some of the responses which will be based on any kind of project you say, or which will be based on any kind of program which is already there and reflected in the website. It's there in the website. Okay, so for which you don't need to write a very long paragraph. So you can simply refer back, you can revert back that, you can refer to that website. Okay, so that kind of category of responses might be there, and responses has to, all the responses have to be either official or unofficial. That has to be categorized. While responding, so unofficial responses can be put in the inbox, right? An official response in the very platform and in the message the timeline, right? And also the time of responses, whether you will be immediately responding, or you will be delaying for a week, or delaying for a month. So that is also very very important, and also scope of responses. One day, then twice a week, or in a week, or in a month. That scope of responses is also supposed to be like that delineated and mentioned when you are going to create an institutional account. And also obligation to certain laws and regulations which you need to know. We talk about IT Act. IT Act, you know about IT Act that was passed in 2000, right? We also have IT Act Amendment 2008. So you need to read the clauses of IT Act and to find out the clauses related to internet security and data privacy, which will help you to understand how you are going to post content. And there is also ISO standard for any government website, universal website. It is not about website, our universal account in social media, that has to be standardized by ISO 27001. That is the standard for any government account. That is, you see, so, so that standard is supposed to be maintained. I'm talking about the government website. When you create an institutional website, be it it's a school website, or any public sector undertaking, website, then it has to follow this. Even many NGO websites are also following this standard. So that is a standard. You need to, not website, sorry, account. Here we usually call social media also website. Many people say, but creating an account in social media is supposed to be followed this very standard. Okay, creating an account in social media by government, basically government institution is supposed to follow this very standard. So this is basically briefly about managing an institutional profile on Facebook, on Twitter, or you say in Instagram, or even say social media, YouTube. Uh, the, uh, the you see the not the rules set that you need to, guidelines that you need to follow. So anything else you want to contribute or you want to ask any query? No?